your kitchen on a bed of shattered glass and shameful lies.
The events of the second Frasier revival season premiere validate why Frasier Crane was unique in Cheers. In the Paramount Plus reboot, Kelsey Grammer's therapist-turned-Harvard teacher officially returns to complete his final act in Boston. Though he inexplicably skipped his regular drinking hole, the first 10 episodes of Frasier concentrated on getting the character reacquainted with his old stomping ground. However, Frasier's relationship with Cheers remains a significant aspect of his journey, especially considering its role in enabling the birth of Freddie. It will have to be addressed by the new show. Giving Frasier his own spinoff following Cheers' cancellation carried a significant risk. Despite its popularity, the bar-set sitcom's first spinoff, The Tortellis, faced early cancellation. Though entertaining, Grammer's character lacked the draw of many of the Cheers' other characters. Nevertheless, the investment paid off when Frasier, a Seattle-based entrepreneur, thrived. To fit in his new environment in the Pacific Northwest, though, the branch had to adapt Frasier. For the longest time, there was no in-narrative justification for this, but the second Frasier revival season premiere finally provides one. In Cheers, Frasier was more grounded than in his Seattle spinoff. Grammer's character in the Frasier comeback is more complex than it was following a protracted career as a Chicago TV star. He stood out at Cheers because he always favored luxury and the good things in life. Frasier was able to really embrace his elitistic tendencies when he returned to Seattle in his own spinoff. Although he wasn't as talented as his brother Niles, the two had generally the same taste, something he hardly did in Cheers. He drank sherry and port and went to galas and fundraisers. Frasier Season 2 pushes him to let go of his elitist ways. Frasier's increased wealth in the revival was evident from the start. He bought the building to ensure that he could stay near Freddie, not just have an apartment. He is free to take a post as a guest professor at Harvard. Still, Frasier returns to Boston with a distinctly more earthy attitude. He now hangs out at a pub or coffee shop, something he never did in Seattle. He also rarely shows up for social events, and instead hangs out with lots of blue-collar workers like Eve and Tiny. Frasier seems to have become the Cheers persona he once was upon returning to Boston. The second Frasier season premiere, definitely illustrates why. In the episode, he celebrates his and Alan Cornwall's relationship by purchasing a somewhat costly ham. However, a series of events force him to abandon his full enjoyment of the lavish experience. First, Eve notes how ludicrous it is that Frasier could spend that much money on a ham, while someone like her cannot even afford a decent trip. If Frasier had still been in Seattle, Niles, or his contacts, could have easily handled the jamon iberico. Then Eve and David's ignorance of appropriate handling techniques for such a costly delicacy causes the ham to go bad. If Frasier were still in Seattle, Niles, or his contacts, could have easily attended to the jamon iberico. With their choice of booze matching, as Frasier intended to do in the Season 2 premiere, the Crane brothers could have savored the pricey pork. Ultimately, though, he must sip Eve's cheap sangria, which he first finds offensive, because the people around him aren't as exact about the experience he originally intended to have. Being in Cheers taught Frasier to adapt to his surroundings so he could belong. The events of Cheers helped Frasier adapt to his surroundings during the revival. Originally presented as Diane's rebound boyfriend, Grammer's character was far more compatible with her than Sam's. But Frasier stayed behind even when Shelley Long left Cheers. Although he couldn't quite fit in, he made an effort. He began drinking beer and even watching sports, something he never really did in Seattle when he hung around with Niles. Frasier adjusted, so he could keep visiting Sam's bar. Many have discussed how Frasier's enjoyment is dependent on those around him. Fascinatingly, the people he hangs out with also somewhat shape his attitude and behavior. Boston has a way of toning down Frasier's elitistic attitude, even if he might never shed it. It happened once in Cheers, and once again when he negotiates his last act in the Frasier revival.